Welcome back to the neighborhood, boys and girls. Our next guest is Jonathon Bonilla. Jonathan, welcome to the neighborhood, my man. From Comparion Insurance, right? I got that right?
Yeah, that's right. Comparion Insurance, a Liberty Mutual company.
A Liberty Mutual company, right. We go under the umbrella of the Liberty Mutual, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we do stuff a little differently. Most people, when they get on shows about business, they like to brag about what they're doing nowadays. And we like to bring it back at first because it's been our experience that everyone's got a pretty cool story. Like, most people don't wind up where they thought they were going to be. And everyone's like, oh, I did this. And so we like to talk about, like, maybe like high school, Jonathan, to now. What was the path like? What kind of road did you travel to get you here today? Because I know you've done a couple different jobs throughout. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess if we bring it back to high school, so I grew up in a family that very introspective. My mother was a child psychologist. Yeah, so
that sounds tough right there, man.
But I did really kind of gravitate towards that pretty early on.
Okay.
And ended up from high school, I ended up going to Rutgers University for psychology, thinking that I was pretty much just going to follow in her footsteps.
New Brunswick or Camden?
New Brunswick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I kind of had all those ambitions, and I thought I wanted to be a therapist. I also felt I kind of had like a really good knack for it, just listening to people, even though my wife will tell me that I probably don't listen to her that much. But
you listen to everybody else but her. I know how it works. My wife will tell you the same thing. You're a great listener, except for me.
Yeah, and just being able to get like positive feedback. I feel like just the way that I was raised kind of with a lot of women. You know, my mother had 3 sisters, and they were very much involved in my life throughout my upbringing. So there's a big kind of feminine drive there that kind of shaped my life and gave me like that sensitive side where I was just always listening to people and just kind of being their support person. Like I was kind of, once I lost my hair, I used to call myself like a little Buddha, kind of, because...
Like the golden child all grown up? That's how you got it?
Yeah.
I want the knife.
But when I went to Rutgers, yeah, I mean, and I stayed the course, and I did graduate with a degree in psychology. Now, the next progression in order to become a therapist is you got to go for your master's, and you have to get, more certifications so that you can become a therapist. But then shortly after I graduated, I had a couple of best friends that we all kind of went to school together. Mm-hmm. One of my good friends, Adam Coco, my good friend Peter Dritchko, and when they graduated, they all went into the financial industry. And immediately after they graduated college, they got jobs at Wachovia, if that kind of like dates me back a little bit right there. So I actually started working for a promotional advertising company doing sales, really kind of just helping and assisting and doing some light sales on the side. But then they told me, they were like, hey, listen, we got this job at Wachovia. It's a financial specialist position. There's a base salary. It's making more than you're probably ever made at this point.
Right.
There's a lot of incentive and commission opportunity. And they're going to pay for you to get your Series 6 and 86 and life insurance. And they're going to put you through this 3-month extensive training program. They're going to put you in hotels and here and there. So I was like, why wouldn't I take this opportunity? Now, there was a big, huge part of me that still wanted to pursue being a therapist, but I kind of got sucked into the idea of making money.
Yeah, making a living. And
I also got to put a nice fancy suit on, and out of college, that made me feel like really, I guess, just professional. And
sure.
So I started working as a financial specialist at Wachovia. I did that for about, now it's an interesting story there because when I initially got hired, I didn't have a lot of sales experience, but I think the driving thing was that I was bilingual. I could speak Spanish. So while some of my friends went to Robbinsville and Princeton and all of these really great neighborhoods, they put me in Trenton, New Jersey in Chambersburg Street, which is a very different clientele.
Yeah.
So
A little more diverse than Princeton. Right?
and honestly, it definitely had its pros and cons. The biggest pro was that as one of the only speaking bilingual financial specialists, I was really catering to the community. And where at first I was bummed because I saw my friends making a lot more money because they were in more affluent neighborhoods, I found myself really kind of helping the community.
Sure, you actually making a difference.
Yeah, I was educating, immigrants, people who had only been in the country for so long. I was teaching them how to open bank accounts, get a license, things like that. And I was kind of a resource for them. So, there was good and bad. I didn't make a ton of money there, but one of my accolades is that, I think I opened like over 600 checking accounts in 1 year,
right?
Which apparently was a big deal. And that's because when I would open one checking account for one individual, they would bring 10 of their cousins.
Right.
They'd be like, "No way, we can have a bank account?" I'm like, "Yeah, you sure can.
Come on down.
We'll take your money." So it was interesting. So I did get some good recognition there. And then from there, same group of friends, Peter and Adam, they started migrating up north, and they wanted to go work at the Big Apple, thinking like, "Hey, let's be big time financial guys." So I think one went, and then the other one went, and then I shortly there followed, and we all kind of just merged together. Different companies. The two guys went to Chase. I ended up going to HSBC, Hong Kong, Shanghai Bancorp at the time, which is a lot of people think it's a Asian company, but it's actually a UK company. And it was my position there was as a business banking specialist. So I kind of migrated from the personal lines and I went to business banking, and it was great. I was in a huge branch with a lot of revenue, and then I think kind of. I was living in, eventually I moved from Jersey City to New York City. I was living in New York City with the guys, and, it was two of us at one point, and it was three of us at one point in a place, so we could afford New York City rent.
Right. That 927 square foot loft with one bedroom that you had.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I mean, we were having a blast. Right. It was a really good way to build your career, get good experience, make some money. But then we were also in New York City, single guys, having a great time. And I think everything started to kind of like change and wear on me a little bit here. So I think, New York City eventually, I think it happens to a lot of people, it starts to take more than it gives.
Sure. It's definitely a rough hustle and bustle grind.
Yeah. If you're not making X, if you're not, I think your average New Yorker, if you talk to them about a savings account, they're like, "I'm sorry, what's that?"
Right.
So I would say from that point, basically, I kind of felt, one, the job had run its course. I wasn't motivated. I wasn't inspired. I didn't feel like I was making a change. I didn't feel like I was really connecting with even my clients who were business clients. I was managing a large portfolio, but it was a very kind of cold experience.
Money can only do it for so long, especially when you're a deep connection kind of person. You know what I mean? Like, you can only be financially motivated for so long until that gets old. And if there's no spiritual void being filled, or if there's no, tie to what you do, it just gets old.
Yeah, I wasn't fulfilled. And while I did appreciate a nice large paycheck at times so that I could continue my lifestyle, it really wasn't making me happy.
Right.
And I stopped caring. I really did. Now, coincidentally, now this is right around when the market started to crash with the housing bubble and stuff. Kind of like
06, 07-ish? Or?
Yeah, this is actually a little bit just after. So HSBC was able to survive a lot of that without really taking a big hit because they weren't invested heavily in the housing market as opposed to other companies. In fact, most of their stuff was global markets. Right. So they didn't have to fire everyone immediately.
Right.
But as things, once I think the bailout occurred, and everybody started to balance their checkbooks. Then they shortly there realized that they had to kind of trim some fat, and so there was a big layoff where they laid off around 30 to 40 people. I got the email that one day I remember that I had to show up to in an office the following morning, and
dear former team player.
Yeah. And, I went home extremely nervous, and I thought to myself, man, this is terrifying. Like, what am I going to do? I called a couple of coworkers, and I was like, do you think this is what it is? And they were like, yeah, I think it is. So showed up that morning. Once I got, sat in a room with a bunch of people, a couple of the coworkers at the time, they looked at me, they said, what do you think we're doing here? And I said, we're getting canned. What do you?
Right.
I was like,
we're definitely getting the axe. Yeah.
I was like, we're definitely getting laid off. And they were like, no. I said, yeah. Eventually, the president at the time or something, he comes in with a stack of manila envelopes. Everyone has a name on it. Starts sliding them across.
Here's your severance package.
Here is your severance package, guys. So there was, a lot of feeling of relief when that occurred. I got that package. I saw the dollar amount. I was like, oh, I can survive. That's good.
Right.
I'm not leaving the city just yet. And then two, I was just like, oh, man, I don't have to do this job anymore.
Right.
I could do whatever I want.
Go find your path.
Yeah, and there was this sigh of relief. So with the severance, I did take a little bit of time off and just kind of enjoyed the city. I went to Central Park while my friends had to go to work. Played ultimate frisbee for a little bit.
Go hang out for a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely kind of enjoyed myself. But then shortly thereafter, the time came, like I mentioned before, where the city started to take more than it was giving. And financially, just to keep up, it just wasn't where I needed to be. So migrated to Philly. When I went to Philly, immediately my first thought was to just get a job. I started bartending because I thought that was an easy way just to make some quick cash.
Everybody's been a bartender or a waiter.
Sure.
It's awesome. It's so great.
I bartended in New York City as well, so I already had the experience. Actually, for people who know Philadelphia, I bartended at Budokan in New York City.
Sure.
Yeah. So then moved over to Philly, immediately got a job bartending at a place, Cambridge on South Street. They closed it. Now it's a different place. Yada, yada. But I loved it. I loved just the social interaction. I loved talking to people. I mean, eventually those people became my friends. I started hanging out with them. But then while I was doing that part-time, I knew I kind of had to get my ducks in the row. So Liberty Mutual, I started searching jobs and had a lot of sales experience at this point. I knew it was going to be a problem getting a job. Found Liberty Mutual, one of probably the toughest job applications I ever took in my life. They made you take like 100 question math test while you were filling out the online application.
Right.
It took like 4 hours. I was just like, I don't even know if this is going to work out.
Right. They figure if you get all the way through that, you're probably going to be hired because everyone else is like, yeah, forget this, man. I'm done. I'm not doing that.
Sure. Then like 2 or 3 interviews later. But they really did invest. So when I got the job with Liberty Mutual, they really did invest in my future. They, similar to when I worked at Wachovia, they had training programs. They sent me to Florida for a couple of weeks. There was the relicensing that I had to do for my insurance license, property and casualty, life, and all of that. They even offered a small pension. They offered matching 401k. I was just like, this is a great opportunity right now. But I think the biggest thing that differentiated the insurance industry from the financial industry was just my ability to dictate my time and kind of control the way that I wanted to run my business.
Sure.
When I was in banking, it was extremely structured. There was 100 metrics. You had to be there from 9 to 5. You were on the clock. There was someone hanging over you saying, hey, listen, this is a little off. Maybe increase this number here. Whereas in the insurance industry, there felt like there was a lot more autonomy. Sure. I was able to just kind of dictate and say, like,
you're pretty much self-employed. You pretty much, even though you work under the umbrella of them. It's pretty much your shop, your business, your life, your rules. You're into production.
For sure.
The hours that you need to work, the time frame that it is. It's not 9 to 5. It's sometimes 9 to 1, 2 to 4, 5 to 7. You know, blah blah blah. Like we were talking about.
Exactly.
When your people that you're serving are working, that's when you're working. You don't really have a schedule-ish thing. You know.
Yeah, for sure. You get to build a brand. You get to become this kind of individualized entity, and you can kind of dictate exactly how you want that to look. And the good thing is that as long as you are doing your job and you are producing, you don't have that boss hovering over you.
Sure.
If anything, I used to say this all the time, that I never felt like I really had a manager as much as I always had a coach.
Nice.
Just someone to support me. And I've been doing it for about 10 years now. And, Liberty Mutual did merge all of its field agents from Liberty Mutual to Comparion, making them one of the largest kind of agencies in the country, if not the largest. Just by the nature of moving all of its employees from one entity to another. It just happened overnight for the most part. But, it was a very slow, gradual process. And Comparion is now starting to blossom. It is growing. The industry has challenges for the most part.
Comparion doesn't have any of those really cool jingles like Liberty Mutual had. Like
not yet.
All the ones that come in, they're working on them.
So Comparion is going to always focus on grassroots, local stuff. Yeah, they want it to feel like a local agency. Okay. So they're going to do a lot more advertising on billboards, in ice skating rinks, in malls, basically in our own stomping ground. That's really kind of what they want to dedicate most of their marketing, as opposed to, seeing a liberty.
Right. Like that's what I'm talking about, man. That's it. Like, man, a damn jingle, man. Wow.
Yeah. But it's been pretty. It's been a trip for the most part. 10 years later, I'm happy where I am. I'm very fortunate to be one of the top sales reps. Within a couple of offices.
Nice.
And I'm just kind of excited and looking forward to where the next stage is going to come with Comparion, because we are still such a new company and we are evolving and growing, and we are getting new carriers in our platform little by little. So nice. I think it's only the beginning.
We're going to take a quick break. I want to reset the camera because I don't want to run out of time. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some present day stuff and some future stuff. So we'll be right back in 1 second. Back with the second half of our interview here, Jonathon Bonilla from Comparion. So we talked a little bit about the start. Let's talk a little bit about the present, because I know that the changes going from Liberty Mutual to Comparion, I haven't really heard it from you, but someone else that I know, the changeover has really allowed you to be a lot more serving of people. It's not like you have one product offering now. From what I understand, there's a variety of product offerings, so you're able to help a lot more people now than you were previously. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. At one point I was only selling Liberty Mutual, so if the rate was bad, maybe I had a partner I could hand you off to, but it has been a blessing, because the industry has gotten so challenging, due to the cost of materials and labor, inflation, just trying to find a contractor to remodel or rebuild a home, trying to find a mechanic that isn't 3 months out, or a collision auto body shop that isn't 3 months out. There's so many difficult situations right now that insurance companies are having to battle. Having multiple carriers, we have about 15 carriers at our disposal, and apparently that number is only going to start growing.
Sure.
They're going to try to add more.
From what I was told, like, different investors, different outlets have different appetites for things. Like, some people don't like pit bulls. Some people are fine if you have a pit bull. Yeah. Some carriers can't stand oil heat. Other carriers are like, well, that's not a big deal. Yeah. Some of them don't want a trampoline, blah, blah, And I've always looked at it, because I've been a banker and a broker and all different things. If you have, the more outlets you have, the more it's like going to the food court. If one of your kids wants a burger and the other kid wants a chicken sandwich, the other kid wants whatever, a taco, you can do that at the food court. If you go to a restaurant, you have only what they have, you know? So I think from what I understand, that's going to allow you, before when Liberty Mutual might have said, oh, no pit bulls, you could say, okay, well, I can outsource this and still keep them in your grasp to allow you to service more.
Yeah, 100%. It's about finding the company that it's the right company for the right customer.
Yeah.
Whichever company has an appetite. If we see that there's certain issues, whether it's with the roof, the style of home, the territory, things of that nature. And then obviously price is something that our customers are obviously going to care about.
Sure.
So trying to find a price that fits their budget, but also giving them exactly what they need as far as their liability risks are involved. So, I mean, it has been a lifesaver. And while it has been, rocky because change is difficult.
Always.
Whenever we're trying to do something new, we're basically sometimes reinventing the wheel, and we're trying new things. There's going to be a lot of bumps along the road. And there have been, but for the most part, I see that there's a company that is extremely supportive of the ultimate end game, and it is to be the largest agency with the most number of carriers.
Nice. Now, do they have some software that you can run a scenario through which it'll tell you, hey, this is our best provider, or is it on you to memorize, well, when this thing and this thing and this thing, I always look here?
Yeah, and that's, as of now, I think that we do have a program that we run it through. That's going to be changing. I mean, there's an evolution there as far as the software program is concerned. But then there is also, you do need someone like myself who really kind of knows the ins and outs of these companies.
Right.
And I'm saying, listen, I'm not even going to bother here because you have a flat roof, or I'm not even going to bother here because of the age of your home, things of that nature. So, yeah, and those companies are even evolving and changing, and they're kind of changing their metrics. So to kind of stay up to date with that and know exactly where to place the customer, that just comes with experience and just running a bunch of quotes.
Sure. The one thing that I've talked about before with a different insurance provider, I never believed that your credit score affected your driving. Your insurance, your car insurance.
Sure.
And I got a call one day. This was like 2011-ish or something like that, when the horrible crash happened and my credit sucked after a while. I was like a 750 credit score forever. And I got a call from my insurance guy. And he's like, yeah, dude, your insurance went up. Your car, I'm like, my car insurance went up? I haven't had an accident or a ticket in like 14 years. I'm completely point free. I have all this stuff. He's like, yeah, I don't know. You're going to have to call them and find out. I called them up and they said, yeah, it's your credit score. And I was like, yeah, but I haven't had any accidents. And they were like, yeah, but the person on the other end of the phone literally said to me, through our studies and through our research, people with lower credit scores are more aggressive drivers because they're angrier, because they have life happenings that have made them more and I'm like, so you're trying to tell me that my credit being bad makes me more susceptible to road rage? And they were like, yeah, well, basically that's what we're saying. I'm like, son of a bitch. So, but I don't think that people understand when I tell people their credit score affects everything. It affects your car insurance. It affects your homeowner's insurance. Like, people don't understand how important all these little factors are to getting you the best possible product.
Yeah, people ask me all the time. If I just sold a policy earlier this morning, and the guy said, he goes, in 6 months, is my rate going to get better? What's going to happen? I said, listen, if I can give you any one piece of advice right now, if you can improve your credit as much as possible over the next 6 months, I'm like, that's what's really going to get you the best rate. It does seem kind of unfair sometimes when you kind of look at how auto insurance companies might rate a customer. But these actuaries, they're just looking for statistical correlations, right?
Sure.
They're saying people that have higher credit seem to have less accidents. That's usually kind of what they're looking. People that have higher credit are usually better at paying bills.
Now we're going to talk off the record here, right? So off the record, that doesn't make any sense to me, because I would think that most women are better at paying bills, which would make them higher credit scores. Absolutely not better drivers. Let's be real about this whole right now. Absolutely not. My wife doesn't watch the show, so it doesn't really matter. But I don't agree with what that was. But we go on with that. But it's funny that that's really and I know that that's the truth. It's the same thing with mortgage rates. When people go on, they're like, oh, well, it's not you. It's when we look at 500,000 people that fit your data,
that's what
this is the default ratio that there is. It's not you personally, it's just how you fit. But
Yeah.
it's crazy that
They
that's
put everyone in a software program and it just starts spitting out data, and they just try to find little correlations.
analytics. All
Yeah,
analytics.
sure.
It's not just about the Sixers.
College degree.
Uh-huh.
What does education have to do with being a safe driver? There's just a statistic that says that if you have a college degree, you're less likely to get into an accident than if you don't. Doesn't mean that you get where I'm going. It's just sometimes, I mean, it can almost be offensive to the person sometimes. They're like, I don't understand. I'm a great driver. I don't have a college degree. I've never gotten to an accident. I'm like, it's not you. It's 500,000 people. Mm-hmm. Like you said.
As the statistical mean goes. All right, so you're in a sales job. You're in a commission job. There's a whole lot of stress. There's a whole lot of life stuff. What do you do to keep yourself sane, to stay on even keel, whether it's personal, physical, meditation, CrossFit, anything that you do to keep yourself from driving people off the road and choking people with road rage? How do you keep your head together?
So I've always, for whatever reason, I've always been a pretty even keel person.
I don't get that impression of you right now. You don't come off as that even keel kind of guy.
But I've never, I've also been in the business for so long. I've been in sales for so long. I'm not scared of the phones. I'm not scared of talking to people. I feel like once you kind of break a lot of those walls and you become good at your job and you put a lot of experience behind it, the job does become a little bit less stressful. But yes, there is numbers I have to hit. And a lot of those numbers are hit just by kind of maintaining my referral partners, making sure that that relationship is healthy. But I have a 1-year-old right now, so that's been a huge new development in my life, which has certainly added more stress, but he does occupy and take up a lot of my time at this point.
Yeah.
And he's freaking adorable. So
it's the best, for sure.
Yeah.
we could spend an hour and a half talking about kids, for sure. But it's funny, one of my friends that is my age, I was talking to about, because we have a 9-month-old, and they were like, I don't think I could do it. I'm like, dude, you don't understand. I guess you forget. If I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I go do my workout, I go back home, I walk in and she starts to wake up, it's almost like an instant battery recharge. Like, just give me 15 minutes of hanging out, holding her, playing, do little googly faces, all that stuff, and then it's like, I'm ready to take on the world. It doesn't draw the energy out of me. It really does refill me with energy.
It's motivating, and I think they make us become better people. I mean, I think my wife made me become a better man, and my child is definitely making me become a better person.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool. That's great. What about like community stuff? What kind of stuff do you do as a business person? You have to be someone in the community. What kind of stuff do you do to fill that cup, like we were talking about? So it's not just about work. It's about the inner spirit kind of stuff.
Yeah, I live in East Falls, Philadelphia. Originally, my wife and I, we rented the house that we then later on purchased. And the reason why that happened is because once we moved there, over a couple of weeks, we met every single one of our neighbors on our block. People were coming by, dropping off food, inviting us over, and it gave us a real sense of community. And we kind of just fell in love with the neighborhood. I remember after a month of being there, my wife, the neighbors threw her a baby shower, and she came back to the house and she was tearing, and I was like, what's wrong? What's going on? She's like, I just felt so much love. I felt so much community in such a short period of time. And I looked at her, I said, you want to buy this place, don't you? And she's like, yeah, I do. And I was just like, okay. But yeah, so right now my community within East Falls is kind of what keeps me healthy.
Okay.
It's kind of what keeps me mentally healthy. Whenever I need a break, I can call up one of my neighbors and say, hey, you want to hang for a bit?
Right.
And then as far as I guess just the community that I've created with my referral partners, I've been fortunate enough to kind of onboard a lot of dealerships and a lot of great salespeople to this day that we kind of have like this kind of brother relationship.
Gotcha.
I call them up. I'm like, hey, bro, how you been? Auto tag and registration individuals. This one guy I've been working with for like 8 years now. And I really do kind of feel like he's like a brother. He was just in Africa and Senegal. I called him up while he was there. I was like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? He's like, I'm eating fresh fish right now, brother. And so I think kind of what's differentiated, the big difference right now with the community that I've made within insurance versus the financial industry is that it's so much more heartwarming. There's so many more friendships involved.
Right.
And that is the way that I like to structure my business. I realize that the relationships we have are professional and, it's give and take, but I really do feel like a lot of these people are my friends right now.
No, that's awesome. All right, now we're going to talk future. So let's go, I always got to calculate in my head. October 2025. Man, I can't believe it's going to be 2025 in 2 years. It's so crazy. Let's go to October 2025. Give me some bullet points, some goals that you have, the boxes you're going to check off between now and then. What are some things that are going to happen for Jonathon Bonilla in the next 2 years?
I think, I definitely want to solidify more relationships within kind of the homeowners, mortgage world with realtors. I was very heavy kind of on auto for the most part.
Okay.
And I have been very successful in that area, but I do want to kind of establish more kind of those like good friendship kind of connections, which is probably why I'm sitting here right next to you at the moment. But then also, there is opportunities and growth within my job, to expand my book of business, to potentially hire assistants that would work. I would work alongside with. Essentially, that could help me drive my business, whether it's with life insurance and things of that nature. I think really just servicing my book of business and making sure that they are properly insured, making sure that my business begins to grow, not just because I'm getting new customers through my sources, but also because they're being referred by my customers who love me.
Nice. All right. Your last question is going to be your personal question. And I'm going to go with, if you had the opportunity to sit down with anybody throughout history, alive or dead, anyone that's ever existed, you could sit down with them for a half an hour and interview them. Who would the person be, and give me one or two questions that you'd love to ask them?
Oh gosh.
They could be famous, not famous, could be anyone
Interesting.
Anyone in the universe.
If I could interview one individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would probably have to be when I was around 26 years old. I had probably one of and it was my best friend. He also considered me to be his best friend. He ended up taking his life, unfortunately. But if I could somehow, resurrect him and sit him down and really kind of just reconnect with him, but then also just ask him why, and also just kind of understand where his head was at that point, and if there was anything I could have done to kind of prevent that or help him get to a better place, I think it would probably be him.
It's funny's not the right word, but that's my answer as well. My best friend took his life when we were 18 years old, 3 days before we graduated from high school. And I did a video about that, and I was like, oh, it made me tear up. Now I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, that's rough, because we've had a couple people that answer it that way, and a couple people that answer it with like this super famous person, and it's interesting to get people's perspective when it's their life, and that was my answer too. I would love to sit down for a half an hour and just kind of, because I don't know how your experience was, but I had no clue. You know what I mean? Like, it was the most shocking thing when he took his life. Like, if you would have said, predict people from 1 to 100 likelihood of taking their life, he would have been 100. You know what I mean? I would have never imagined that he was suffering like that. And I felt like a real failure as a friend because I never picked up on it. I didn't know. Yeah. And I would love to be able to do that. So it's awesome that you had that answer.
It's no question. It altered the course of my life. It changed me. And I don't even know if it was for the better. I think it changed me for the worse for a while because I didn't really feel like I had a lot of future goals.
Yeah.
I was living very day by day at that point after he had passed. Probably wasn't until I met my wife and bought a home and had a child, that I said to myself, there's really a lot more to live for at this point.
Yeah, for sure. John, thanks for coming on. Great to have another awesome guest on here, and we will be back next week with another edition of Mr. Mortgage's Neighborhood.